Here's a song that will get your heart rate up. Every time I sing the word up, reach for the stars. Every time I sing the word down, touch the ground. The rest of the time, march with your knees high. Those magnificent men in their flying machines, they go up to the up, they go down to the down. They enchant all the ladies and see all the scenes with their up to the up, and their down to the down.
Hello and welcome to the Powell River Airport in beautiful, misty, rainy, windy Powell River, British Columbia, Canada. Looking at a cousin of a lake amphibian. I think it's called a skimmer, visiting us today from Nanaimo. So that's one amphibious seaplane. And here's another. This is the one I've been building for 7 years now, the Searey. And I'm almost there. Almost there. Will he get airborne this year? I certainly hope so. So please, join me. Subscribe to my channel, Spirit of Mackenzie. Give me some likes if you think it's worth it. And follow along. All the challenges, problems, and joys and laughs of putting together this hopefully beautiful seaplane. Well, it's another wet and windy day here on the wet coast of Canada. And it has been every day of the past week, preventing me from looking at the engine. And a week before that was even worse, as it was on much of the west coast of North America. But there's one thing I can do, and I've been putting off for a while because it requires me to dismount the wings, at least partially. And that is putting the gap seal up between the two wings and around the pylon. This gap seal is a thin aluminum sheet that bends around into place, riveted in place, and of course it helps with the aerodynamics, but also just as important, it's the mounting surface for the antenna, for the VHF, the transponder, and the EPIRB. And one of the reasons I've been putting off doing this is the fact I have to dismount the wings, which is a big job. I didn't know about these gap seal support angles, which mount on the end of the wings, on the inboard ends where they're not accessible, until I started reading chapter 57, which is a long way into the manual. And that's when I realized that Progressive Aerodyne hadn't included these small parts in the original kit. But I contacted them some years after I purchased the kit, and they were so good as to send me these gap seals free of charge, and I appreciate that very much. So hats off to Progressive Aerodyne for that excellent customer service. But why didn't you include the parts in the original kit? Oh well, bygones. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to start dismounting the wings, at least partially, get the gap seal angles in place, put the wings back, then wrap the gap seals around, and then I can mount the antenna, run the cables down the control panels or the instruments, and at the same time, or around the same time, I'll be mounting the pitot tube out here on the wing, and the AOA tube, and hooking up the plastic hose that goes into the EFIS behind the control panel and the airspeed indicator. So that's my challenge today, and I'll struggle to keep my hat on doing all of this, and I'll struggle because I'm by myself, but I'll make it work. So the gap seals cover in that gap between the port and starboard wing, and on the top and the bottom of the wings and along the side of the pylon. And up in this area here will be where I mount the antenna, and also the outside air temperature probe, somewhere there. So I've got to disconnect the wing. There's a bolt here and a bolt back at the end. I'll take these bolts out, and then maybe the wing will pivot down if I loosen these bolts off. And I don't have to take the wing off entirely, which is more of a three-man job. And then once I swing the wing back up into place and bolt it securely, I can connect up the control rods again for the flaps, for the ailerons, and then there's some rigging which has never been hooked up before. A rigging cable here which goes up to the wing, and yeah, important step. So let's get to it. Blustery weather be damned. So here we go. I got all the tools I think I need close at hand, including a cold refreshment, which may sound a bit odd on a cold wet day like this, but I don't know. It's more for the brain than the body. I've also made sure I've kept the ground straps on because it is windy and I don't need this wing taken off on me if something happens. And I've also got support under this monsoon so the wing doesn't drop on me. So let's get at her.
And they're down, 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 up and down, flying around, looping the loop and defying the ground. Up and down, they're frightfully keen, those magnificent men in their flying machines. They can fly upside down with their feet in the air. They don't think of danger, they really don't care. Newton would think he had made a mistake to see those young men and the chances they take. Those magnificent men in their flying machines, they go up to the up, up, they go down to the down, down. They enchant all the ladies and see all the scenes with their up to the up, up, and their down to the down, down. Up, down, flying.
Okay, if you can hear me above the wind, I just realized my little plan of lifting the wings up is not going to work because I forgot that the way the wing is attached to the pylon is there's a tongue of metal slides into this forward spar on the wing like this, and you cannot pull this up because first you have to pull this back, and this tongue is about 2 inches long. So I can't do this by myself. I'm going to have to get family, friends to help me here. I'm probably going to take at least one other person, maybe two, to support the wing and pull it out. And then maybe you can whatever. And this weather is not conducive to bringing friends and family up. So I think a nice warm drink at home in front of the fireplace and watch some YouTube videos. It makes lots more sense right now than doing this. So it's going to take us a while to work these things, and watch out for all these things, especially this one right here. So if you go at the back there, you handle that one. There's holes in there. Right here. No, a bit further up. Right there, that big one. Okay, I don't know how that is. Oh, you're off already. That's excellent.
Off already?
I think so. You're out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Oh, I can't. You stood up.
You wanna hand it to?
I want you to go there.
Yeah, come here, I'll take the other one out.
Down, flying around, looping the loop and defying the ground. Up, down, they're frightfully keen, those magnificent men in their flying machines. Up, down, flying around, looping the loop and defying the ground. They came, those magnificent men, in their flying machine.
Okay, open them up. Okay, you got that smashed? Yeah. Okay. Protect the beer.
Those magnificent men in their flying machines, they go up to the up, up, they go down to the down, down, they enchant all the ladies.
You guys don't do my arm anymore.
Okay. Hold it up.
They enchant all the ladies and see all the scenes with their up to the up, up, and their down to the down.
Okay. Now, will I be able to get into the end there?
Work? Yeah, you pull all kilometers too. It's
That's
just
perfect. Yep.
what we do, so we just push it more towards the peeler. That way, if it actually slides off, it's gonna at least hit the peeler and it won't fall all the way.
Well, we can tie it down too. Yeah. I want to try to keep it lined up here as much. I just have to put a couple things here.
Okay.
And then there's a couple walking there. Okay. Look, that's pretty good. So Sebastian's drilling the pilot holes that are going to hold the gap seal angle into the end of the wing. There's a top angle and a bottom angle on each wing. Necessitated taking the wings off the plane, hopefully for the last time. A young craftsman at work.
Mechanic, please.
Oh, mechanic, sorry.
A young mechanic.
Well, this unexpected torrential rain, what a downpour, has put paid to our effort here to complete the gap seal angle installation on the end of the wings. My crew of hanger rats, who I'm so grateful for, were a great help, but we've lashed the wing down onto its temporary supports and we'll leave it overnight and finish this job tomorrow. I also ran out of screws. With the wing off, I've been able to put the little angle iron strips, angle aluminum strips that hold the gap seal between the wing and the pylon, and just secure the wiring for the lighting coming out of the end of the wing. And then on this side, I finally have an opportunity to clean up the rat's nest of wiring that comes up the pylon and goes back to the engine ground strip, and then ultimately to the engine, and then back with the grounds, and also the wiring for the regulator. And I'll also be able to torque up all these nuts and bolts. Generally just clean up this interface area on the top of the pylon, underneath the radiator, and between the wing and the pylon before I put the wing back on. Okay, I think that looks a lot better now. I've got the wiring harness more organized and tied together. The fuel line is better anchored and secured. And I paid particular attention to the wiring going into the regulator to make sure it was secure. Yeah, I think we're ready to put the starboard wing back on. And not too soon, because I think another storm is blowing in. Oh, will this never end? Another bloody wind and rainstorm. I've been sitting in my car trying to stay dry and warm while I wait for a couple of family members to join me up here at the hangar to put this wing back on. Now that I've got that work done on the inner surfaces. With this wind and squalls every day at all hours of the day and night, it's not a good time to have the wing off the plane. I've tried my best to secure it to stands, but I just don't feel comfortable in the position it is. I got to get this wing back on the plane. And unfortunately, in the next break in the weather, I got to take the other wing off and do the same job. Well, this pissing down rain and squally wind is not enough to hold me and my good crew of hanger rats back. We got that wing on safe. Now we can sleep soundly at night knowing the wind's not going to send it flying down the runway. According to Canadian comedian Red Green, rest in peace, all you need to fix anything is some WD-40 and some duct tape.
This week on Handyman Corner, gonna take you outside and show you how to change a flat tire. Anyway, the first step here is to get the hubcap off there. All right, now this particular wheel has been on the truck since I bought her new. Now some people say you should rotate the tires. I don't really understand that. I mean, they get rotated while you're. I think some people just look for work. But with them being on there that long, these nuts are rusted on there like cow flaps on a waffle iron. So what we need to do is throw in some penetrating oil. And I say, you know, if you're going to put penetrating oil on it, there's no sense being skimpy, holding back. You got to really, really soak it in there. And you know, we like soaking things in up at the lodge. I mean, for the alternative to the normal tire changing technology, and this will require the handyman's secret weapon, duct tape. What we do is we've duct taped the spare tire right onto the flat there. Of course, now this is only temporary unless it works. So that's got her done. Remember, until the next time, if the women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy.
And that's going to come in handy now as I modify my unicycle so I don't rip the skin off the back of my legs off again and put myself off riding it. So I'm going to wrap some duct tape around these ferocious cleats on the pedals that were my undoing. I guess they're valuable if you're riding on a bumpy, muddy trail and you really don't want your feet to slip off. But my feet did slip off and those cleats took a chunk out of my leg. So I'm going to duct tape those up. Whoa, I don't think my unicycle like that. Well, tough. Now it is time to move on with the final push, putting all the loose ends together so that I get to the state of having a complete plane which will be ready to fly. One thing I've got to do is finally fix this aluminum center console box, fix it in place, and then I can put this fiberglass top piece on. I haven't fixed this in place before because of course I was installing the brake tube in there. I was starting the engine for the first time and I had to adjust maybe some Bowden cables, but I think I'm ready at this time now to fix this aluminum console case in place. To do that, there's a bolt through there. It sits on the seat belt through bolt here, basically clips in there, and then there's a small support which for months, if not years, I've been wondering what this stray part is. It didn't come with a part number on it. And since I never read this chapter about actually fixing the console before, I never came across its picture. But this is a little support that goes on the tail end and fixes the aluminum box to the center bulkhead, which will involve some trimming of the support at one end and drilling and tapping into this gusset plate here so that this can be basically bolted in. With this machining work going on, of course, there's going to be shavings dropping down. And a long time ago, on the advice of the manual, I put plastic protective covering around a bearing. It's down here. Believe it or not, there's a bearing for this vertical shaft, which is a flight control linkage shaft. Yeah, you can't see it turning, but as I move the joystick back and forth, that spins that shaft, and that drives this mechanism, which pulls on these tie rods. You know, the toe bone's connected to the ankle bones, connected to the hip bone and all that stuff. Anyway, so I'll keep that plastic sheathing on the bearing for a little while longer until I get this fixed, and then I can finally remove it. Ah, metalwork. My favorite high school subject. Okay, so I got that little bracket secured while it's been raining all afternoon, but safe and sound under the tin roof. Wasn't too uncomfortable. So anyway, that bracket is secure, fixed on the seat belt through bolt down there. There's a bolt through there, and I made sure I secured all my brake lines up out of the way so they won't get pinched by any aluminum. Okay, and then when the rain stops and it's a little lighter day, ooh, nice glow in the sky and a beautiful rainbow. Oh my God, that must be a signal of something. Look at that. Ooh, leprechauns, better watch out. I got a shovel. I'm coming for the end of the rainbow. It's going to be a nice sunset tonight. So the center console is secured in place now, including the knobs on the brake and throttle levers. A couple of green for good to land on ground lights are on, indicating the wires to them at least are intact and underneath the console. Well, what a beautiful morning. Nice day coming on today. Relatively speaking, we have experienced horrendous weather in my home province of British Columbia on the western side of Canada over the past few weeks. It has been, it seems, non-stop rain and wind. I heard recently on the news last night that we had something like 5 atmospheric rivers come over the lower part of the province, what we call the lower mainland, in the last relatively short while, shall I say the last month or two. We've had bomb cyclones. There was even a report of a tornado touching down on the west side of the city of Vancouver, which to me, at least in my years on this planet, is completely unheard of. The weather has been atrocious. In fact, right now, parts of British Columbia are under a state of emergency as declared by our Premier. There's been highway washouts, railroad washouts, flooding of major valleys and agricultural areas, homes destroyed, people killed by landslides. The Canadian Armed Forces have been mobilized to rescue people, provide security, and pull hundreds of motorists out of their cars where they were trapped for days by landslides and washed out highways. In short, it has been phenomenally bad weather. And yes, I guess I'm leading up to an excuse. When I started this video series back, I think it was in May of this year, my project schedule was 3-4 months of building, a month of testing, a couple months of general aviation, a 6-month program to get me well into the air. Well, it's been certainly more than 6 months. It's now closing in on the end of November, and I've not got even my certificate of airworthiness yet. In that time, though, I have not been standing still, because of course this project is not my main focus in life. I do work. I work remotely in my home for a project management engineering company based locally. It's out of Vancouver. Worldwide, it's based out of Scotland. no, that does not explain the bagpipes above my head, but there is a kind of a curious link there, I suppose. So I have been working at a real job, albeit remotely. I have managed to get my project management certification in that time. I've also got my professional engineering certification reinstated after being overseas for 20 years. And that's the provincial PNG certification for British Columbia. I've also got one in that time for Saskatchewan. Meanwhile, my family, we bought a house and moved in. And all those other daily chores and challenges and wonders of running a life have been occurring in parallel with trying to get the Spirit of Mackenzie completed and in the air. Yes, I guess that's a whole bunch of excuses. So, the point being, I was working part-time. Well, my company has now won a definition study on a very large industrial project based in central Canada. I'm the project manager. As of now, I'm now working full-time, and as I'm a project manager, that means more than full-time. And in fact, I'll be heading out this weekend for a 3-week stint at the project site. Harkens back in my memory to the 3+ years I had to work overseas in the middle of the build of the Spirit of Mackenzie. The reason primarily that it's now almost 7 years under construction, as opposed to say the normal 2 years. That was 3 years away from the build completely. Now I just have 3 weeks I'll be away, leading up until the middle of December and into Christmas. Get that behind me, and then I'll be working remotely again from my home here in Powell River and also my office in Vancouver. But I'll certainly have time on the weekends to put into the Spirit. My new objective, given all these excuses, weather, work, joy of family, all these good things, my new objective is to get my certificate of airworthiness by the end of this year. A pre-New Year's resolution. I'm not that far away. Okay. Anyway, my heart goes out to all the people in British Columbia who've suffered to the extent they have. Myself and my family have been very lucky in the bubble of Powell River. It's one of the advantages of being cut off by road and water normally from the rest of the province, I suppose, as we're in kind of a protected area. We certainly suffer the weather, but we didn't suffer the damage. And I sympathize and empathize with all those my fellow British Columbians that have and are still suffering from this. Cheers. See you in the next video, which hopefully will be not too long away and will show me back on track.